I'm with Brit Marling at the Yarrow, and there's a screening of Another Earth underway downstairs, and I saw it yesterday. Tell me about your background. You didn't start out as an actress.
I started out in the complete opposite. I studied economics at Georgetown, and like most good Georgetown students, ended up my junior summer at working at an investment bank, and I think what happened is I had this experience where I'd been making short films at school, and then I had this experience where Mike directed Another Earth, Zal directed Sound of My Voice. They came up to New York, and I had a particularly heinous week. I was the sole analyst on two companies that had IPOs at the same time. So I was like underwater with work, like taking a car home at 3 in the morning, showering, getting back in the car, coming back, and I was doing this for like 2 weeks straight. And then Mike and Zal come to town, and they're like, the 48-hour film festival's happening in New York, let's do it. And I was like, are you kidding me? I haven't slept for 3 weeks, there's no way, forget it. And they showed up at my uncle's apartment where I was staying, and they're like, we're gonna make this film, here's the topic, we've got 48 hours, let's do it. And I was like, okay. So we write this little short and do this film and stay up for 2 days straight. And something about that juxtaposition,
It clicked because you have more fun.
yeah, it unlocked something. I suddenly saw that in banking it was like I could measure out my life in coffee spoons. I knew exactly where I was going to be in 2 years and 3 years and 5 years. I knew exactly what kind of money I was going to make, what life it would be like, and it all felt. I wasn't passionate about mergers and acquisitions. I wasn't passionate about it. And I saw that some of my colleagues were, and I thought I just don't belong here. And I'm going to be a workaholic no matter what. I might as well be a workaholic doing something that I love.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's great. So you were willing to walk away from money, though.
Yes.
And did you have a little bit saved up? Were you able to sort of sock it away?
No, I mean, no,
Not really.
not really. No, and that is really hard, actually. That was really hard to do, because I think, and also your
How
parents.
did your parents feel? Yeah.
Yeah, your parents really, out of nothing more than love, they want you to
Be secure.
be secure, and that was really challenging. But the place that I had arrived at was that no poverty would be as unbearable as waking up in a life at 30 or 40 or 50 that wasn't mine, that I had accidentally lived.
But what I like about this idea is that you happen to decide to become part of, creating films at a time when the barriers for entry are not so high.
Yeah.
And you guys were able to put something together without huge amounts of money being required. And you did 2 films, and 2 films got into Sundance. Now, did you act in that 40-hour thing? So that you enjoyed that a lot.
I loved that. And then Zal was graduating from the AFI, and I acted in his thesis film. And it was really that experience because I loved that story, and I loved the experience of working on it very seriously. And after that, it was just like, this is it. And because I had already lived my fallback plan, there was no fallback plan. It was it's going to be this, or it's going to be this. And so then it just became a question of, okay, how can I act in the way that I would like to do it? How can I?
Did you have any training?
No, I mean I had done plays and things in high school, but no formal training. And then I actually, when I came out to LA, I met this wonderful man, Harry Master George, and I studied with him. And he's amazing because this is what he told me the first day that I walked into class. This is going to sound sort of heady and intellectual, but it's not really. He quoted Aristotle's On Poetics, and he said, this is all you need to know about acting. The actor who merely assumes the characteristics can never move anyone as much as the actor who is genuinely moved. So your job is just to get yourself into a space where you strip all this analytical stuff out and develop your innocence and your imagination and your vulnerability to be this vessel for stories that come through you and move you more deeply than they move anybody else. That's your job description. And I thought to myself, this is amazing, to attempt to do this for a living. So.
But you are also using your intellect to write these screenplays. And what struck me about Another Earth was that what you did worked you had a very straightforward relationship drama that had a sort of quirky sci-fi component to it, but you did it in a very straightforward, austere, simple way, which is of course required for something of such a low budget. But you figured out a way to do this, and how much calculation? I mean, how much did you guys figure this out? How did you figure out the script?
You know, what happened? We came up with the epic macro part of the story first, the sort of science fiction element, and then we worked backwards. And the idea was how, given this sort of like sci-fi premise, what human drama could we tell that would emotionally unlock the most about this epic idea? I can't really...
The epic idea being that there's a parallel, if you like, to Earth.
Yeah.
Where all the people on this Earth are on that Earth.
Yeah.
And there's this idea that maybe a Richard Branson type of character would send a ship up to the other Earth.
You
right?
tell it better than I do. Yeah, it's that. And I think what we started was the idea of, what if you met yourself? Like, what would you feel, if this was you talking to you or me talking to me? Like, what would that conversation be like? We have that in our minds all day long, this, like, interpersonal dialogue that goes, But what if you could externalize it? Like, what if I could sit down and have a conversation with myself? And then the thought became, to whom would that mean the most? Who needs to see themselves the most? Like, what kind of person needs to encounter themselves the most? And that's where Rhoda's story came from, as somebody who is bright and ambitious, and then her life just, overnight becomes drastically different. And how does she recover from that? And I guess that's where it came from.
And then how did you end up casting opposite yourself William Mapother, who many people remember maybe from Lost?
Yeah, it was in the bedroom. Mike and I saw it in the bedroom, and his performance in that movie, it's like, he haunts me. I was terrified by him in that work. And we loved the idea of casting somebody with that kind of gravitas and energy, somebody who could scare you, would scare Rhoda, and then to see his journey into a more, like, romantic figure.
It worked. Now, Mike, and also what's working is that these two characters are both so wounded, and you root for them to pull themselves together and heal each other, and that works very well too. Now, the other question is, Mike Cahill, was he someone that you were involved with at one time, the director?
We back in Georgetown when we first met, we dated and we went to Cuba together and we made this movie, and then we became friends and we're best friends. And I think, Mike and I have always had an amazing creative collaboration, because what I love the most about Mike is he has his courage is unbelievable. It's really difficult to make your first feature and to do it in such a not traditional way, to not go into it with a lot of financing. It began with Mike and I going to live at his mom's house with my sister and his friend Leong, and we were like, okay, we're here, we have a camera, we have a laptop with Final Cut, we have this crazy story idea, let's try to make a movie. And
just the two of you?
Yeah, and
really? Actually
the ending scene, I obviously cannot say what it is, but that was shot first. And that was the way that it began. And something about doing that, I think, is the amazing thing that the technology is allowing young filmmakers to do now, which is that you don't have to wait for permission anymore. Before, it's like if you came to LA or New York and you're trying to get a film made, you need permission from someone to do it. Like, you need money, or you need these name actors, or you need, a big production company or studio to finance it. And now it's like, you just need to pick a start date and, like, start shooting, and then it can snowball from there,
Yeah, but the other thing is that for actors, and you're not just an actress, but you may have a career ahead of you as one, you have such a punitive process to go through, to break through and actually be able to get parts. This way you have just jumped ahead of the line. Suddenly the Hollywood Reporter is calling you an it girl before your movies even show at the festival,
Yeah,
and there's something, but now you still have to prove that you delivered, Moving on, I heard you talking a little bit about the second film that's here, which is in the next um, uh, category, which is more of a webisode structure. Talk about how that one got made.
Yeah,
And the name of it is?
the name is Sound of My Voice.
I keep forgetting it.
Yeah.
Forgive me.
No, it's all right. We were inspired by the internet when we were writing it. You can't really think of it yet. We were inspired by the internet and the idea that at the time we were watching a lot of In Treatment on our laptops, like in bed at night. And I loved that experience. Like, I loved the intimacy of being alone in my bedroom with a laptop, watching this show that's about like unraveling the psychology, and something about that experience seemed to me, the story seemed to be paired to the experience of watching it on a laptop alone in bed at night. And I think we thought from that, like, what about writing a story that within the DNA of the story, you're taking advantage of what the web experience can do, what watching something on that platform is like. If you go to a theater, you've paid $14 if you're at the ArcLight, you've driven all the way there, you've parked, you've like gotten in. I mean, it has to be a really bad movie for you to walk out, like, you know, so, but if you tell a story for the internet, at any time, the person's like clicking over, checking out a different blog, like there's also, you have to, at any point they can just close their laptop and do something else. You have to find a way to lure them in. It's a much more seductive kind of storytelling. You have to hold them and keep them from the beginning. And the idea of crafting a story where that was in the DNA of it appealed to us. Because this is when Obama was happening, and the power of his campaign over the internet, the way that, like, you feel the internet is somehow a truly democratic platform, and that if something is good and it hits the internet, it can go like wildfire. And that hasn't happened for film yet on the web, but I think that it could. And
well, that brings up the next question. I mean, here you know, last night you were basically showing these two movies back to back across the street from each other, and I wondered, were you able to gauge any kind of reaction? Have you gotten a chance to see how people are responding
to the film.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was intense. This very incredible woman came up to me after the Another Earth screening, and this was after the Q&A, and even a couple minutes after the Q&A, and she was crying, and not in the way that you sometimes feel people cry at the theater, which is, I mean, I do this, I'm guilty of this, is that you use cinema as a way to sort of get out these stored emotions, and there's something that seems sort of, I feel for myself sometimes gratuitous anyway, like I'm wanting to get rid of stuff. She didn't seem like that at all. She had the kind of emotion that is like electric, you know, that you feel when you're acting and a scene like really becomes transcendental. Something of electricity is being exchanged. And she came up to me afterwards, and her emotion was so deep and so genuine, and I thought to myself, oh my God, like if I could get to do this for a living, potentially, you know, if that may be in the cards for me, what...
That's what it's about for you.
Oh my God.
Cool, that's cool. So what is your fantasy of what would happen, you know, in terms of distribution for these two films, and how it would work?
You know...
Because, frankly,
Yeah.
you know, this is the hard part.
It is,
Getting
yeah.
into the festival is good. Audition piece is good.
Yeah.
Your discovery as an actress and a writer and so forth, a producer, good.
Yeah.
But getting these movies out, that's the hard part.
No, it really is. It is. And I think, I mean, the one thing that I think both of these stories have going for them is that they're really high concept.
That's
so
true.
They're kind of not what you would maybe expect from independent, what is maybe considered independent storytelling. There's something...
They're accessible, right?
Yeah, they're accessible.
What's the concept for the second film?
It's about a couple that infiltrates a cult that's meeting in the basement of this house in the San Fernando Valley. And when they go there, they meet at the safe house, and they're made to scrub down and put on hospital gowns, and their hands are bound, and they're blindfolded. They're put in a van and driven through the valley and go through a garage. So they have no idea the location of this house. And they go down the basement stairs, and in this basement is this cult that is protecting a woman who claims to never leave the basement chamber. And so they want to know what the secret of this group is. Like, why are they protecting this woman? Like, who is she? They give her blood for transfusions. They're growing her food in this hydroponic garden in the master bedroom. And this couple, they're documentary filmmakers, are bent on infiltrating with cameras and trying to expose,
So you've got a mystery.
This
is why you have to keep turning the page.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Cool.
Or keep clicking. Yeah.
All right. Well, I wish you the best of luck. But no, back to my question.
Yeah,
What's
so-
the distribution possibilities, do you think?
Well, I think what's interesting about Sound of My Voice, for instance, is that I think it works as both in a theatrical setting. You can watch it as a 90-minute feature in a theater. It's also broken into chapters, so it could be released incrementally over the web. It's also part of a long format story. I mean, we developed it for like many, many hours. This is just like the first splinter. So the idea was to like create a world and potentially launch it, and it could be a trilogy of films.
Or someone could ask for the television rights, and you could do it over as a TV series.
I think that ideally, like that would be
That
the
would be
dream,
cool.
to maybe do something, maybe do the first incarnation online with a network, and then develop it into a series.
If you could prove that there was a following,
If we could
they
prove
would
the following,
then.
and that people are interested in
Yeah,
the world, and
that could work.
yeah, it could work.
Yeah.
And then Another Earth is a little different. I think Another Earth is very is probably would do better to have a theatrical release and then see from there. But I mean, I think the real problem for a lot of these films, like with micro-budget filmmaking, the question really becomes like, what do you do with the theatrical release? I mean, for so many of these movies that have theatrical releases, they lose all this money there, but you're getting a stamp of validation.
You are getting an identity and a brand name.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, theatrical is the only way to achieve that at this stage.
At this stage, but I really wonder what could come take the place of that down the road. Like, I wonder what thing could aggregate stories and become the new tastemaker, because these movies that are being made for, like, micro-budget movies, they don't
have to make that much money.
Yeah, so there
Well,
should be a
social networking works, and this is an accessible story with a sci-fi hook to it, and it's a question of figuring out how to get. I mean, you are getting a lot of attention right now here at Sundance, and you could go to some more festivals after this and build up a little wind in your sails.
I think so. I mean, I think Another Earth is also a movie that's particularly well suited to the large experience. Something about the story is a bit larger than life. It's like a parable, and to be in the presence of this large screen and held captive in the dark and watch this story unfold, it has that grandeur, epicness to it. So I think
Did
it
you
will do very well.
hear about the Miranda July movie, The Future?
No, I'm so excited to see it.
There's an element that's slightly similar in that there's a character that is communing with the moon a lot in this movie.
That's so
It's
interesting.
kind of cool.
Somebody last night told me, they were like, you would love
I
this
think you
film,
would.
so
It's my favorite so far.
Really? I can't wait to see it.
She's a remarkable filmmaker. But you have a great deal of potential too.